So what I'm doing at the moment is I work in a very modern version of a control room. So I sit in front of lots and lots of different computer screens. It all looks very space age and very cool. And I operate plants that are nowhere near me. So it's all completely remote. So I operate some here in England, some in Wales, and then there's even some over in South Africa that I run. So I will go on the computer screen. I'll change different things on there so that the plant's running in a different way, and that will physically be moving things over in a different place. So that's the main part, and then the other element is we get notifications. So the plant has systems monitoring how everything's doing, and if something's not running quite right, I'll get a notification that something's looks a little bit funny, or it'll tell me that there's a problem with something, and it's my job to figure out what's going wrong, if I need to do anything about it. And yeah, that's essentially what I do.
Okay, so for those watching and listening to the podcast, explain to them what BOC do and what does that plant mean, because not everybody will know or understand what that means. Me and you do, because I'm involved with BOC and you work for them. But if we can break that down into what you actually do in that plant.
Yep. So the primary thing that we do is separation units. So we've got the air all around us. It's made of various different things. And those gases we can separate out, and they have different uses. So for example, the oxygen in the atmosphere, we can try and get hold of that, and then we can use it in a medical setting, or we can try and capture the nitrogen, and that can be used as a safe atmosphere for like food packaging. So if you get some food, it might have nitrogen in there to stop everything going bad while it's on its way to you, while it's being stored. So we have lots of equipment that takes the air, takes it in, and makes it so cold that it changes into a liquid. And then we separate that liquid out, and that then goes off into the individual products. So that's the main thing. And then we've also got other plant types. So we might make hydrogen, which everyone's talking about being a great fuel source. So that's a big future thing, and a big green thing.
So just for clarification, BOC, it's chemical engineering, and it goes into every walk of life that you can possibly think of, as you described. So the NHS would use it from a medical point of view, the food industry uses it from what you've described. And I think, even every day, if you're going into a pub, it goes into the fizzy drinks that you get from over the bar as well.
Yep.
So it's really important job that you do, and what you control worldwide is quite a cool, interesting job.
It's really cool. Yeah, it goes into all sorts of stuff. But yeah, every time you have a can of pop, that's got CO2 in, and we make CO2, so it's everywhere.
Yeah,
Absolutely
it's
everywhere.
fascinating to think about our everyday lives and how that translates into a chemical engineering plant where you work. Okay, so if we go back in time when you were a little girl, what is it that you wanted to do when you grew up?
I think I wanted to be a vet because my best friend wanted to be a vet. So I decided that instead of thinking what career I was going to do for myself, I was going to make it very easy, and I was just going to be a vet like my friend. But yeah, I had all sorts of different ideas about what I was going to do, because I was just so interested in everything, which I guess could have been a little bit of a clue, because engineering, so every sector in the world, every industry will have an engineering discipline that's associated with it. There's engineers everywhere doing all sorts of different stuff. But yes, I wanted to be a vet. It wasn't actually until I was older that I started thinking about engineering, but I didn't know what engineering was. I think I pictured a man in a boiler suit fixing trains, and I didn't want to fix trains, so I wasn't interested. But yeah, so it wasn't until I was, I'd say maybe about 16, that I started thinking that it could be a good idea as I learned more what it was.
What got you to that conclusion that you wanted to do engineering if you didn't want to fix trains when you
I
turned
was
16? What made that change?
it was a really, probably not the same thing that a lot of people do. So I went on holiday when I was 16, and it was the first time I'd been on holiday since I was about 5 years old, and I loved it when I was five. I got to eat sweets as I went up, and I got in this big tube, and then I ate sweets, and then I came down, and then I got to go in a swimming pool. So loved it. So I didn't think I was going to have a problem until I got to 16. I went on holiday. It was the first time being on a plane when I was a little bit older, and I hated it. I was really frightened. And part of that being scared made me want to understand, and kind of made me a little bit obsessed about aviation and about aircraft and how they worked. And what happened when they didn't work. So why did they go wrong sometimes? So I got really interested in that, and through sort of being scared about it and wanting to know more because I was scared, I started looking into engineering as a potential. And there were all sorts of things. As soon as I started looking into it, I realized just how many different jobs you can have under this one engineering. So I looked at courses in architectural engineering. So if you're going to be the person that's designing buildings, and I had a look for if I was going to do aerospace, if I was going to build a jet engine, there's so many things. Then we had an open day and we went to a university, and I spoke to a gentleman in mechanical, and I was really excitedly talking about this accident that I'd heard about where these bolts went wrong, and it turns out that they were counterfeit, so they weren't as good quality, and I was fascinated as to how something that seemed so little could have such a big impact. And that was what really sort of got me going towards that. So yeah, it was a fear of flying that made me end up going into engineering.
Yeah, interesting that it was your fear. So you must like to understand and fix things and problem solve.
Definitely problem solve and definitely understand things. I think sometimes you hear this rhetoric that do you like fixing things? And the first thing that comes into your head when you're thinking about an engineer and fixing things is, would you enjoy fixing a vacuum cleaner or a lock? Well, no, not really. Would you enjoy fixing a car? And that's not what it is. But I love knowing how things work. I loved knowing, like, why does a cloud make rain? That was fascinating. So I was just fascinated with the world, which is a great foundation for wanting to be an engineer. If you're fascinated with how things operate, not just what you might think of as a machine.
So very inquisitive about things,
Mm.
understanding how the components all work to make the
Yeah,
bigger
yeah,
product.
absolutely. And I was very creative. I was very into drawing and I was very into art and design. And I loved the projects at school where we'd get to make. I can remember we made a violin and we made a slipper, and I loved that. And that's great. I think if you're a creative type, then that is also a fantastic indicator that it could be a really good thing for you if you really like that sort of stuff. If you really like arts and crafts
Yeah.
and designing, and you're designing and building things.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's an interesting point because a lot of people and a lot of young people will think that you have to be good at the other subjects, but if you
Mhm.
have that creative side, it still aligns to working in engineering as well.
Absolutely. So the subjects, so when you think of maths and science, and they're really important, and you need to do well in those. But that wasn't an easy thing for me. So I actually failed right up at age 16 when I was doing the big exams. I failed my maths the first time, and I had to redo the entire course and resit it and pass it. So it wasn't something that came easy to me. It wasn't that was the innate thing that I had. It came from this place of creativity and curiosity
Yeah.
with that catalyst of being scared of flying.
And that's really an interesting point as well. It's if you decided quite, later on after you'd done your GCSEs, this is the direction of
Mhm.
travel you went. And I presume because you were so motivated to go into engineering, that's what helped you focus to doing well in maths.
Very much, yeah, because I knew I needed it, so it was a necessity. I think sometimes we don't like things because they're difficult. It's very easy to enjoy stuff that comes naturally to you. But once I started to get better at math and I put the work in, now I do enjoy maths. It used to be my least favorite subject, and I love it now because I worked so hard on it and I'm now pretty good at it. That feels really good. It feels like a really big achievement, and it's less daunting.
Yeah, and then you forget when you're at school, you think, why do I need maths? But it actually is in everyday life, a bit like what we're saying about
Mhm.
BOC gases in everyday life. You don't realize how much you actually need and use it.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Well, I remember secondary school, they teach you about Pythagoras' theorem, and I thought, I'm never going to use this. And that's a really common thing that people in school go, oh, I'm never going to use this. When am I going to use this? And I actually used it to hang wallpaper on my staircase once. So I had to cut wallpaper, and it was really up high, and I couldn't reach it to measure it. So I did some funky stuff with a broomstick and that theorem
yeah,
to cut
excellent.
the wallpaper. So you do use it.
But that's your logical problem-solving mind as well, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, very much so. There was probably an easier way to do it realistically, but I knew this thing and I knew I could do it that way, and so I did.
Very
I was very,
precise.
I was very proud of myself. Yeah, yeah. I thought
Yeah,
it was a
yeah.
very elegant solution.
Very good, very good. And so what grades did you need to get into university? So did you have to do A levels to get into university, and what subjects did you choose?
I had to do A levels. I did very well at GCSE, but because when I went into A levels, I had to work at the same time and I had a lot of things going on. And I also wasn't particularly well, so I was a little bit poorly. And so I didn't get particularly good grades at A level. I think sometimes there's this perception that you have to be this all-star student and get the top grades in everything. And there's many more ways to access the career than that. So I ended up I studied quite a few things. So I studied maths, physics, biology, chemistry, and psychology. But I didn't do psychology and chemistry in my second year. I just did them in my first year. Chemistry I found really hard. Interestingly, the two subjects I struggled in most were maths and chemistry. Every other, so I loved literacy. I was great at it. I loved IT. I was great at it. I loved history, and I could do it with my eyes closed, and I could get an A without even thinking about it. And maths and chemistry I couldn't. So I didn't even do chemistry going into my second year, and yet here I am in a chemical engineering position.
It just shows you the different paths to travel, and you end up where you need to end up at the end of the day.
Yeah. If it's that whole, I think it might be a Disney song, where it's talking about taking the next right step, and that's exactly it. Just if if you've got a feeling that you might want to head in a different direction, just take the next right step towards that. And that's all I've done my entire time, and I've ended up being really happy where I am. But yeah, no, so I didn't even do chemistry, and I didn't get particularly good grades. But I did get into university through something called clearing, which is where if there's places that they haven't had taken up by students that did get the grades that they wanted, I got in through that.
And what uni did you go to?
I went to Sheffield Hallam, but only for the first year, and then I moved around, and all sorts of different things happened after that.
What course did you do at uni?
I did mechanical. So, funnily enough, I went into a room and spoke to a careers advisor. And I imagine that this was terrible advice at the time. But I said, I really want to work with aircraft. So, I was thinking about doing aerospace engineering. And he was like, well, if you ever want to be anywhere near an actual aircraft, do mechanical instead. I've no idea whether that's true. Probably not. I've not ended up going into aerospace anyway, so it's not ended up mattering. But yes, that was why I ended up doing mechanical.
How many other girls were in your course at uni?
Not very many at all. I can't remember the exact number. I want to say it was about 10 in maybe about 300. So
Very small
very, very
ratio.
small. We were all friends, and it was not a large group.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's something that might stop girls going forward because they
Mhm.
don't think there'll be other girls doing it. So what sort of
It's
advice would
much
you give
better
to them?
now. Yeah, so it's much better now. So I think the courses have a much higher proportion than they did when I did it. Not to say that it's 50-50 yet, because it's not. And especially in something like mechanical, because everyone thinks mechanic, you're fixing cars. And that's not what it is. I'd say there are girls, if it's important to you that there are other girls on the course, there will be. These courses are huge. There's loads of people on them, so you will find your people there, and you'll find your people within the university as well. A lot of your friendships come not from your course, but from where you live or from who you bump into in libraries and cafes and things. You will absolutely have opportunity to make female friends, but also a lot of the guys that I've met along the way have been fantastic, and some of my best friends have ended up being boys. So I wouldn't worry about the social side. You'll have a great time anyway.
Yeah. And I think some of the other people that we've interviewed in the podcast, they're saying it doesn't matter, they're still your friends, which is what you're saying. It doesn't
Yes.
matter whether you're a boy or a girl.
Yeah.
And it's just creating that right opportunity for something that you're passionate about and moving forward with.
Yeah, and you've all got very similar interests. It's a room where everyone has picked to do the same thing as you. So you share a lot of similarities with all of these people. It's very easy to make friends.
Yeah, good stuff. And then what happened after uni? What was your direction of travel when you went into employment?
Yeah, so I've done all sorts. I was a bit of a jack of all trades when I was younger, but I didn't go into engineering first. I started working because I had to work at the same time that I was in university. So I worked for an insurance company, and I loved that because there was an element of fraud investigation. So I got to try and almost feel like a little bit of a detective trying to catch the bad guys that were trying to put these fake insurance claims through. So loved that. So
Solving
I did
problems again.
solving problem absolutely, yeah. So I loved that. I did that for much longer than I thought I was going to. I got to work in an airport for a little bit. I got to be the person bringing planes in with
Oh, brilliant.
those sticklers. Loved that. That was fantastic. Um, I've worked in, I helped run a pub, I did all sorts. So that was my early career. And then while I was working in an insurance company doing things at a little bit of a higher level, and I'd done some project management and all sorts of stuff, I'd built up enough skills that I spotted a job. I wasn't looking for one, but I'd spotted one where it was a global role, and I got to go and do projects all over the world on chemical plants to recover precious metals, so platinum, which is very, very expensive, very valuable. So if you can try and recover some from that process, because the process uses it, there's a lot of money. So I thought that sounded great fun. And I went to the interview, and he said some of this work. So engineering, typically, you're not hands-on. You can be. That's a totally valid avenue. But a lot of the avenues, you're in an office most of the time. You can walk in, like I often do, in stiletto heels with your fingernails painted and your makeup on, your hair nice. But yeah, it had a physical side to it. You were physically doing the recovery project. I was like, incredible. That sounds great fun. I've done some property development before. I've wielded a sledgehammer. This sounds great. I'm really excited. And I'm 5'2", so I'm not a tall lady at all. So I went in and convinced, well, the guy that was hiring was listened to me and believed me when I told him things about myself. And I said, I think I can do that. It sounds really exciting. My favorite thing that I've done when doing something physical is wielding a sledgehammer. That was apparently the convincing thing for him, and they hired me to go and do it. I traveled all around the world and did these projects, and um, I wasn't massively involved with the chemical plants themselves, because we were coming in as contractors. They weren't our plants, and they were inviting us in to come and do something. But I started to get really curious about that side, and I'd speak to these people that ran the plants. I was like, oh, I feel like I could get along with doing a little bit of that. And then I spotted the job at BOC Gases. And that's what I thought, oh yeah, okay, this is what I want to do next. And hence I'm in a chemical engineering discipline.
Yeah. And BOC are a nice company to work for.
They're fantastic, yeah.
Yeah. And my understanding at BOC, in the department that you're working in, there aren't a lot of females in there either.
There's more and more, so that they've got a fantastic drive to bring women into the space and try and get that diversity going. I'm a fairly recent intake to that, and we've got some other staff members that have joined after me. So they're I imagine leading statistically in getting women into these positions. But yeah, no, it is still we still have a skew where there are more men in there than women. So it's getting better, and they're working really hard, but it is still that way.
Yeah, brilliant. Good stuff. So just come back a little bit when you were younger, or even now, is there any female role models that you looked up to previously when you were growing up at uni, or today, that's within this arena?
Not really, and I think that's part of the problem. That there was nobody who looked like me or spoke like me that was doing this kind of job. So some of the things that I've ended up doing and that I've fallen into, and some of the conversations that I've ended up having happened kind of by accident. They weren't planned. So I was one of the lucky ones that got to see what this life and what this potential thing looked like, and therefore knew that I wanted it. But there weren't any. There weren't any on TV. Not that there weren't people that I loved. I loved Mona the Vampire. Um, so there were women who were role models in sort of breaking the mold. And my mum is she can do anything she sets her mind to, and she very much instilled that in me, and that was a really important thing. But there was nobody in this industry or anything near it. And I grew up in quite a poor area as well, so there weren't really any engineers, never mind female engineers. It wasn't really a thing.
So you're a trailblazer then for where you came from.
No, I'm not sure I want to self-assign that badge.
We'll give you that badge.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I think those are most of the questions. So I think you've articulated everything really well, that it'd be great if you can work really hard and get your grades at school, but it's not the end all and be all. You can always go back, reset them, and
Hmm.
do it again. You can go down a different path, but you might end up going down the engineering path eventually.
Hmm.
It's your destiny, because it sounds like the direction of travel that you went, you weren't good at chemistry, but you ended up working in chemical engineering plant,
My two
ironically.
worst subjects that I hated are the thing that I'm now doing.
Yeah.
So, and I
Excellent.
love it. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. It's not that I'm doing it, I'm like, well, it's okay. It pays well. It's no, I love this. This is what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. So, what would your advice be to young girls who don't think engineering's a career for them? They think it's just for boys. How would you
Change their
summarize
mind.
that?
It's great. Come do it.
You can do it.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Do some research, speak to some people. That was the biggest thing, is actually speaking to people and finding out what they did. I mentioned before, there's so many different jobs within engineering. It's not just one thing. So speak to some people that do it if you can. If you get opportunities to speak to people at universities, go and speak to the people in the STEM departments, especially the people that run the courses, because quite often they've had careers before they've done that, and they can tell you a little bit more what the day-to-day looked like for them. The internet is a great resource if you spend some time researching different paths. If you're interested in something, let's say for example, you're interested in architecture, or you're interested in food production or anything, there will be an engineering side to it. So anything that you're into, see if you can figure out what engineering looks like within that thing that you're interested in. Information will help a lot.
Yeah, great advice. And I do think that if you have that passion and that's what you want to do, just follow your dreams. You can do
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. It's all a sum of how much work you put in. If you work hard at something, you will absolutely get towards that thing. I didn't think I was ever going to do anything to do with maths, because it wasn't just that I got a bad grade, I failed. I got a big fat F. Came back on my paper and told me that I'd not got the qualification, never mind a good version of
Yeah.
it. So yeah.
Sometimes it's maybe who's teaching you at that time that you just don't click.
Yeah.
And then when you do it again, because the same thing happened to me with English. I didn't do well at English at school, but then
Mhm.
I went to college and did it and got top scores. So
Yes.
sometimes it just depends. It could be
Yeah.
the learning style where you're at.
And sometimes it's where you are in your journey, and you can have, sometimes it's something really little that's not clicking, and all of a sudden it does, and you go, oh right, okay, well, all of a sudden this is totally different, this is a totally different thing that I'm dealing with, and it's much easier than it was, or it's much more enjoyable. So I think keep your mind open, and don't be worried that you're not capable of something, because you will be. It's all just a product of how much effort you put in. And if you're really into something and you've got that intrinsic motivation, you're not trying to drive yourself, you love it, you want to do the thing. So you're motivated just naturally to do it. You'll get there. Just trust
Brilliant.
the process, I guess.
Yeah. Good advice. Okay, that's us and our little podcast. So thank you so much for joining us,
Mhm.
especially when you've got a little baby on the sidelines there.
Thank you. Yeah, there you go. Proof that female engineers can have it all. I'm dressed in pink with my lovely daughter.
Yeah, yeah. So maybe she'll be the future engineer as well.
Yeah, maybe. She's probably going, oh no, mum, not interested in that.
Yeah. Okay. Great stuff.
Know too much about it.
Thank you ever so much for taking the time out to
Thank you.
share your experience with us. And fingers crossed we get more female engineers that know that they can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Come work with me. I'm
Yes.
cool, I promise.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Lydia.
Okay. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.